The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Starfleet has catalogued thousands of phenomena, from subspace anomalies to temporal distortions, each explicable through science and reason. But what happens when something tears through the fabric of reality itself, carrying with it the impossible, a warrior princess forged by gods in a universe where gods are not supposed to exist? Captain James T. Kirk stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, staring at the view screen with the particular intensity he reserved for situations that defied explanation. The stars streaked past at warp 6, but his attention fixed on the sensor readout Spock had just transmitted to his command chair. The numbers made no sense. "Spock, run it again," Kirk said, his voice carrying that edge of curiosity that his crew had learned meant they were about to have an interesting day. The Vulcan science officer's fingers danced across his console with characteristic precision. "I have run the diagnostics 17 times, Captain. The readings remain consistent. The energy signature detected at coordinates 447 Mark 6 exhibits properties that should not exist within our current understanding of subspace mechanics." "Should not exist, or cannot exist?" Kirk asked, leaning forward. "An important distinction." Spock's eyebrow arched fractionally. "The former suggests our knowledge is incomplete. The latter suggests we are observing data that contradicts fundamental physical laws." Lieutenant Uhura's hand went to her earpiece. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal. It's faint, and the translation matrix is having difficulty. The linguistic patterns don't match any known language in our database." Kirk's instincts prickled. Unknown energy signatures. Untranslatable languages. They were light years from any established Federation colony, deep in disputed space between Federation and Klingon territories. "Can you clean it up?" "Working on it, sir. There's significant interference from the energy readings Mr. Spock detected. It's almost as if—" She paused, fingers adjusting controls. "As if the signal itself is phasing in and out of normal space-time." "Red alert," Kirk commanded. The bridge lighting shifted to crimson as klaxons sounded throughout the ship. "Mr. Sulu, reduced to impulse. Shields up." The Enterprise dropped from warp, and the viewscreen stabilized to show open space scattered with distant stars. Except for one region directly ahead, where space itself seemed to shimmer like heat rising from desert sand. "Fascinating," Spock murmured, his face bathed in the blue glow of his scanner. "Captain, I am detecting a temporal rift. The chronoton particle count is increasing exponentially. Whatever created this phenomenon utilized technology far beyond current Federation or Klingon capabilities." "Or Romulan?" Kirk asked. The Romulans had been quiet lately, too quiet. "Negative. The energy signature bears no resemblance to known Romulan temporal experiments. This is something entirely different." The shimmer on the view screen intensified, reality rippling like water disturbed by a stone. Then, without warning, the rift exploded outward in a cascade of golden light that forced everyone on the bridge to shield their eyes. When the glare faded, something floated in the void where empty space had been moments before. "Magnify," Kirk ordered. The viewscreen zoomed in, and several bridge officers gasped audibly. Uhura's hand went to her mouth. Even Spock straightened perceptibly in his chair. A woman hung suspended in space, her body tumbling slowly into zero gravity. She wore armor that gleamed red, blue, and gold, colors that seemed impossibly vivid against the star field. Her dark hair drifted around her face like a halo. On her wrists, silver bracelets caught the light from distant suns. At her side, a golden rope coiled like a living thing. And she was alive. "Life signs, Mr. Spock?" The Vulcan's hesitation lasted only a heartbeat, but Kirk noticed. "Affirmative. Human, or remarkably similar. However, her biosigns are unusual. Heart rate elevated but steady. Body temperature higher than human norm. Cellular activity readings are off the scale. I am detecting what appears to be active regeneration of tissue damaged by vacuum exposure." "She's healing?" McCoy's voice crackled over the intercom from sickbay. "Jim, nobody heals from vacuum exposure. Not without serious medical intervention. Doctor, I suggest you prepare to receive a patient who appears to be doing exactly that," Spock replied. Kirk made his decision in an instant, the same instinct that had saved his ship and crew 100 times before. "Lock on transporter. Beam her directly to sickbay. Uhura, alert Dr. McCoy. Security team to sickbay, full precautions." "Aye, Captain." The bridge fell silent except for the ambient hum of ship systems. Kirk watched the view screen as the transporter beam caught the floating figure in sparkling columns of light. She vanished from the void, pulled from one impossible situation into another. "Mr. Spock, I want a full analysis of that rift. What caused it, where it leads, and whether anything else is coming through." "Already underway, Captain. Preliminary scans suggest the rift is collapsing. At current rate of decay, it will seal completely within 47 minutes. 47 minutes to understand what had just happened. Kirk stood, straightening his gold command tunic. "I'm going to sickbay. You have the con, Mr. Spock. Keep those shields up and run continuous scans. If this is some kind of trap, I want to know before we're in the middle of it." "A logical precaution," Spock agreed. Kirk strode to the turbolift, his mind already racing through possibilities. A woman in armor, surviving in open space, healing from injuries that should have killed her instantly. The Federation had encountered many species with unusual abilities, beings of pure energy, silicon-based life, even creatures that existed partially out of phase with normal reality. But something about this felt different. The turbolift doors opened to reveal the corridor leading to sickbay. 2 security officers stood at attention outside the entrance, phasers conspicuously on their belts. Kirk nodded to them and stepped through the doors. McCoy stood over the biobed, medical tricorder in hand, his face a mixture of fascination and frustration. The woman lay unconscious on the bed, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths. Up close, Kirk could see details the view screen had missed: the intricate craftsmanship of her armor, the unusual starfield pattern emblazoned across the chest piece, the way those silver bracelets seemed to pulse with their own faint light. She was beautiful in the way ancient Earth statues were beautiful, classical features that suggested both strength and grace. "Well, Doctor?" Kirk asked quietly. McCoy didn't look up from his readings. "Jim, I've been a doctor for 20 years. I've treated Andorians, Tellarites, even performed surgery on a Horta once. But this..." He gestured at the biobed readouts. "Her cellular structure is human, but enhanced somehow. Her muscle density is 3 times normal. Her bones are reinforced with a crystalline matrix I can't identify. She's producing white blood cells at a rate that should be impossible. And according to these readings, she's somewhere between 25 and 3,000 years old." 3,000? Kirk's eyebrows rose. The cell degradation patterns are contradictory. Some tissues show normal aging, others show virtually none. It's like she's been suspended in time, or... McCoy shook his head. "I don't know what." The woman's eyes opened. They were blue, a striking, clear blue that seemed to look directly into Kirk's soul. For a moment, nobody moved. Then she sat up in one fluid motion, taking in her surroundings with the rapid assessment of a trained warrior. Her hand went to her side, where the golden rope hung. She spoke, and her voice carried the ring of absolute authority. Kirk didn't understand a word, but the meaning was clear enough. "Where am I? Who are you?" "Easy," Kirk said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "You're safe. You're aboard the USS Enterprise, a Federation starship. I'm Captain James Kirk." She looked at him, and Kirk had the distinct impression he was being evaluated, weighed and measured in the span of a heartbeat. Her gaze shifted to McCoy, to the advanced medical equipment, to the sterile sickbay environment so unlike anything from her world. When she spoke again, her voice was calmer, though no less commanding. She touched her temple, then pointed at Kirk and McCoy, a universal gesture. I don't understand you. Uhura, Kirk said, tapping his communicator. We're going to need that universal translator working overtime. Our guest is conscious and attempting communication. Patching it through now, Captain. The linguistic analysis is still processing, but I'm getting, this is strange. The root language patterns are similar to Ancient Earth Greek, but with significant variations. Ancient Greek. A warrior woman in classical armor. Healing abilities that defied medical science. Kirk looked at the woman on the biobed, at the strength in her bearing despite obvious disorientation, at the way she held herself ready for anything. What's your name? He asked, speaking slowly and clearly to give the translator time to work. She tilted her head, listening. Understanding flickered in her eyes. The translator was adapting. When she replied, her words came through Kirk's communicator with only a slight delay. I am Diana, Princess of Themyscira, daughter of Hippolyta, champion of the Amazons. She stood, and even weakened by her ordeal, her presence filled the room. Kirk had faced many unusual first-contact situations in his career. He'd negotiated with rock creatures, reasoned with computers that believed they were God, and once talked a planet out of nuclear war using nothing but logic and a well-timed bluff. But standing in sickbay facing a woman who claimed to be an Amazon princess and called advanced technology sorcery, presented a unique challenge. Not sorcery, Kirk said carefully, watching Diana's reaction. Science. Technology. We travel between stars using principles of physics and engineering, not magic. Diana's eyes narrowed slightly. She moved with fluid grace to the viewport, her hand trailing along the biobed as if testing its reality. When she saw the stars streaming past, her expression shifted, not fear, but profound recognition mixed with wonder. The gods spoke truly, she said softly. There are indeed other worlds among the heavens. She turned back to Kirk, and he saw her warrior's mind already adapting, processing, accepting. Your vessel moves through the void as Helios drives his chariot across the sky. You have harnessed powers my people believed belonged only to Olympus. Your people? McCoy asked, his medical curiosity overriding his usual caution. These Amazons you mentioned? Pain flickered across Diana's face, quickly suppressed. Themyscira. Paradise Island. My home, hidden from the world of man by divine blessing and my mother's wisdom. Her hand went to the golden rope at her side, fingers brushing its coils as if drawing comfort from its presence. I was defending our shores when the sky itself tore open. A weapon, unlike anything I had faced before. It burned with unnatural light, and where it struck, time itself seemed to scream. Spock's voice came through the intercom. Captain, her description matches our sensor readings of the temporal rift. The Klingon have been experimenting with chronoton-based weapons. If one of their tests occurred near her world, it could have created a dimensional intersection. Kirk finished. He looked at Diana with new understanding. You were pulled through that rift. Across space, across time, possibly across dimensional boundaries we don't fully understand. Dimensional boundaries? Diana repeated, her accent giving the technical phrase a strange poetry. You speak as if there are many worlds, layered one upon another. The multiverse theory, Spock said, his voice carrying that particular tone that meant he was genuinely intrigued. Captain, I recommend bringing our guest to the briefing room. This conversation would benefit from visual aids and a more comprehensive explanation of her situation. Kirk nodded. Agreed. Diana, may I call you Diana? You may, Captain Kirk. She straightened, and despite the obvious exhaustion in her eyes, her bearing remained regal. Though I am far from my home and my sisters, I am still a daughter of Themyscira. I will meet this situation with the strength and wisdom my mother taught me. Security escort, McCoy muttered as Kirk moved toward the door. I don't think that will be necessary, Bones, Kirk replied, though he kept his communicator within easy reach. Something tells me if our guest wanted to harm us, we'd already know. Diana's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement of truth. "You have offered me aid when I was vulnerable, Captain Kirk. The Amazons do not repay such kindness with violence. But know this, I am a warrior, trained since childhood in combat that would break your strongest soldiers. If you have brought me here through deception, you will learn why my people are feared by those who would do evil." "No deception," Kirk assured her. "Just a lot of questions, and hopefully some answers." The walk to the briefing room drew stares from every crew member they passed. Diana moved through the Enterprise's corridors like a visiting queen inspecting a foreign palace, curious but unintimidated, her hand never far from the golden rope at her side. Kirk noticed how her eyes tracked every detail, the smooth walls unmarred by torch brackets, the omnipresent hum of the ship's systems, the crew members in their uniforms moving with practiced efficiency. When they passed a viewport showing the stars at warp, she stopped completely. "We move faster than light itself," she said, not a question but a realization. "The distance between worlds that would take lifetimes to cross, you traverse in moments. Days or weeks, actually," Kirk said. "But yes. Warp drive lets us explore the galaxy, seek out new life and new civilizations. A noble purpose." Diana resumed walking. "My people withdrew from the world of man because we saw only war and suffering. You venture out to find what is new and unknown. Perhaps there is wisdom in both approaches, or perhaps—" She paused at the briefing room entrance. "Perhaps we were both wrong to choose absolutes." The briefing room held Spock, Scotty, and Uhura, along with a security officer Kirk had ordered to remain unobtrusive. Diana took in the room's occupants with a warrior's quick assessment, her gaze lingering on Spock. "You are not human," she said directly. Spock raised an eyebrow. "An astute observation. I am Vulcan." "A different species from the same planet Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy call home." "Your planet holds many peoples?" Diana's interest was genuine. "On Earth, my Earth, there were many nations, but all were humans save for my sisters. Our Earth has one unified world government called the United Federation of Planets," Kirk explained, gesturing for her to sit. She did so with unconscious grace, though Kirk noticed she positioned herself where she could see all entrances. "Multiple species working together, exploring space as one." Uhura leaned forward, her linguistic fascination evident. "Princess Diana, your language, the computer has been analyzing it. The root structure is definitely ancient Greek, but there are variations we've never encountered. And some of the words you use, they don't exist in any Earth database." "Because I do not come from your Earth," Diana said simply. She looked at each of them in turn. "I begin to understand. The weapon that struck Themyscira did not merely transport me through distance. It cast me into another world entirely, one where the gods shaped reality differently, where science accomplishes what magic does in mine." "Magic doesn't exist," Spock stated flatly. "What you perceive as magic is impossible," Diana finished quietly. She closed her eyes for a moment, and Kirk saw her draw on some deep reservoir of strength. When she opened them again, her gaze was clear. "Then I am stranded here, in a world that is not my own, where my gods do not watch over me and my sisters cannot hear my call." McCoy entered the briefing room, medical tricorder in hand. "Not entirely alone, Princess. According to my scans, this universe's Earth exists. The planet itself is out there, with billions of humans living on it. But not my humans," Diana said softly. "Not my mother, not my sisters, not the world I swore to protect." She stood, moving to the viewport. Against the backdrop of stars, she looked simultaneously ancient and ageless. "In my world I am Wonder Woman, champion of truth, defender of the innocent, warrior for peace. Here I am simply adrift." Kirk joined her at the viewport. He'd lost crew members before, seen people torn from everything they knew. But Diana's loss was on a scale he could barely comprehend, not just her home, but her entire reality. "You're not alone," he said. "The Federation has helped countless beings adapt to new circumstances. We can contact Earth, find you a place. To do what, Captain? Diana turned to face him, and the intensity in her eyes reminded Kirk that for all her beauty and grace, this was a warrior forged by gods. I am trained for battle, for leadership, for the defense of those who cannot defend themselves. I am not meant to live quietly while injustice thrives. The Federation doesn't tolerate injustice, Kirk said. But we have laws, principles. The Prime Directive forbids us from interfering with the natural development of less advanced civilizations. You would watch innocents suffer and do nothing? Diana's voice carried an edge now. What manner of law commands inaction in the face of evil? Spock's eyebrow rose. A complex one, designed to prevent greater harm through unintended consequences. Or a convenient one, Diana countered, that allows the powerful to avoid responsibility for the weak. Kirk felt the familiar tension of diplomatic conflict arising. It's not that simple. The ship lurched violently, throwing everyone against the bulkheads. Red alert klaxons screamed to life. Bridge to Captain Kirk! Sula's voice was tight with urgency. 3 Klingon battle cruisers just dropped out of warp, weapons hot. They're hailing us, sir. They're demanding we surrender the artifact we retrieved from the temporal rift. Diana's hand went to her lasso, her entire body shifting into combat readiness. These Klingon, they are enemies? Sometimes, Kirk said, already moving toward the door. They're warriors, honor-bound, aggressive. And if they detected our transporter beam pulling you from that rift, they know we have something they want. Then they will be disappointed, Diana said, falling into step beside him with the easy confidence of someone who'd faced armies. I am no one's prize to claim. Kirk hit his communicator. Bridge, this is the captain. I'm on my way. Tell the Klingon we're willing to discuss the situation. They're not interested in discussion, sir, Sulu replied. They're charging weapons. Diana's eyes flashed with something Kirk recognized, the look of a warrior who'd been patient long enough. Captain Kirk, it seems your peaceful Federation is about to face violence. Perhaps now you will show me what manner of warriors travel the stars in your time. As they ran toward the turbolift, Kirk couldn't help but think that Diana of Themyscira was about to get a very thorough introduction to 23rd century diplomacy. The kind conducted at phaser point. The bridge was controlled chaos when Kirk and Diana emerged from the turbolift. Spock stood at his science station, hands moving rapidly across controls. Sulu and Chekhov worked their consoles with focused intensity, while Uhura's fingers danced across her communications panel. On the view screen, 3 Klingon D-7 battlecruisers hung in formation, their aggressive design unmistakable even to someone from another universe. Diana stopped just inside the bridge entrance, her warrior's instincts taking in the tactical situation instantly. 3 vessels against 1. They believe numbers give them advantage. Usually does, Kirk said, moving to his command chair. Mr. Spock, report. The lead vessel is the IKS Kronos, commanded by Captain Koloth. Spock replied without looking up from his scanner. A known adversary. The other 2 cruisers are maintaining attack formation Beta 7. All 3 ships have raised shields and armed disruptors and photon torpedoes. Friendly as ever. Kirk muttered. Uhura, open a channel. Channel open, sir. The view screen shifted to show the interior of a Klingon bridge. Captain Koloth sat in his command chair with the casual arrogance of a predator assured of his superiority. His dark features split into a smile that held no warmth. Captain Kirk. How predictable to find you claiming salvage rights in disputed territory. Koloth's voice carried the guttural accent common to his people. The temporal weapon our scientists were testing created an unexpected prize. We detected your transporter beam. Surrender what you retrieved, and we may allow you to leave with your ship intact. Kirk remained seated, projecting calm confidence. Captain Koloth, we rescued a living being from certain death in the vacuum of space. That's not salvage, that's a rescue operation. And the being in question isn't property to be surrendered. Koloth's eyes narrowed. A living being? Our sensors detected unusual energy signatures, not life signs. You lie, Kirk. I assure you, I'm telling the truth. Kirk glanced at Diana, who stood silent but alert near the science station. The person we rescued is standing on my bridge right now. Then bring this person before the view screen, Koloth demanded. Let me see what is worth the lives of your crew. Kirk hesitated. Showing Diana to the Klingon could escalate the situation. Or it could satisfy their curiosity enough to defuse it. He looked at her, raising an eyebrow in silent question. Diana stepped forward without hesitation, moving into the viewscreen's field of view. I am Diana of Themyscira. I am no one's prize, Klingon. I claim myself. The effect on Koloth was immediate. He leaned forward in his chair, eyes widening fractionally, the most surprised Kirk had ever seen a Klingon commander display. Behind him, several bridge officers murmured in what sounded like appreciation. A warrior woman, Koloth said, his tone shifting from contempt to something approaching respect. And you wear armor as if you know how to use it. Tell me, Diana of Themyscira, have you proven yourself in battle? I have defended my people against threats you cannot imagine, Diana replied, her voice steady. I have faced gods and monsters, armies and tyrants. I do not need to prove myself to you. Kolotha's smile returned, but this time it held genuine interest. Spirit. I like that. But Captain Kirk's Federation weakens warriors with their talk of peace and diplomacy. You deserve better than to rot among those who fear combat. The Federation saved my life, Diana said. Whatever else they may be, they acted with honor when they could have left me to die. A debt of honor. Koloth nodded slowly, understanding flickering in his eyes. Very well. But a warrior of your apparent skill should not be wasted on a ship full of scientists and explorers. The Klingon Empire values strength. We would welcome one such as you. Join us, and you will know true battle, true glory. Kirk tensed. This was exactly the kind of recruitment pitch that could appeal to someone from a warrior culture. But before he could speak, Diana laughed, a clear, ringing sound that somehow conveyed both amusement and warning. You speak of honor, yet you threaten those who rescued me, she said. You speak of strength, yet you require 3 ships to face one. I am Amazonian Klingon. We do not serve, we choose our own path. Kolotha's expression darkened. Then choose wisely, woman. The Federation will cage you with their rules and their precious Prime Directive. They will tell you when you can fight and when you must stand aside and watch injustice unfold. Is that the life you want? Diana's silence stretched for several heartbeats. Kirk saw her jaw tighten fractionally, and he realized Kolotha's words had struck closer to home than he'd like. The tension on the bridge was palpable. I have much to learn about this universe, Diana finally said. When I understand what paths lie before me, I will choose. Until then, I owe Captain Kirk and his crew my life. That debt stands. It was a diplomatic answer worthy of Kirk himself, but Koloth clearly wanted something more definitive. His hand moved toward his armrest controls, and Kirk knew they were seconds from weapons fire. Captain Koloth, Spock interjected smoothly. I should inform you that our sensors detected residual chronotin radiation from your weapon test. The temporal rift it created violated the Organian Peace Treaty's prohibition on temporal weapons development in disputed space. Koloth froze. The Organian Peace Treaty was enforced by beings of pure energy who had forcibly stopped a Federation Klingon war. Violations brought swift and certain consequences. You would not dare report this to the Organians, Koloth growled. The treaty requires it, Spock said mildly. Unless, of course, this encounter is resolved peacefully and both sides agree to classify the incident as an unfortunate accident requiring no further investigation. Kirk suppressed a smile. Spock's logic had just given everyone an exit strategy. Kolotha's knuckles whitened on his armrests. After a long moment, he nodded sharply. Very well. Keep your rescued warrior. But know this, Diana of Themyscira. If you ever tire of the Federation's weakness, the Klingon Empire remembers those who show courage. You would be welcome among us. I will remember your offer, Diana said neutrally. The view screen cut to black, then returned to show the 3 Klingon cruisers. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the warships turned and jumped to warp, vanishing in streaks of light. Kirk released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Well done, Spock. Excellent timing on that treaty violation reminder. It was merely logical, Captain. The Klingon value honor but also pragmatism. Facing Organian intervention outweighed their desire for acquisition. Diana moved to the command chair area, her eyes still on the empty view screen. These Klingon, they are truly your enemies? Sometimes enemies, sometimes uneasy allies, Kirk said. The galaxy isn't as simple as good versus evil. Most species fall somewhere in between. And they were correct, weren't they? Diana turned to face him directly. About your prime directive. You do stand aside and watch injustice if your laws command it. Kirk stood, meeting her gaze. The prime directive exists to prevent us from imposing our values on others, from playing God with civilizations that should be free to develop naturally. Even when they suffer? Diana pressed. Even when the strong oppress the weak and you have the power to stop it? Even then, Kirk said quietly. Because history has shown that interference, no matter how well-intentioned, often causes more harm than it prevents. Diana's expression was unreadable. On Themyscira we withdrew from the world because we could not stop mankind's violence and cruelty. We chose isolation over helpless witness. Your Federation chooses to remain present but inactive. I am not certain which is the greater failure of courage. The words stung precisely because Kirk had wrestled with the same question countless times. How many times had he bent the Prime Directive to its breaking point? How many times had he found creative interpretations to justify action? Before he could respond, McCoy's voice crackled over the intercom. Jim, I need you back in sickbay. Those medical scans I ran on our guest? I've completed the full analysis, and you need to see this. On my way, Bones. Diana, would you join me? She nodded, following him to the turbolift. As the doors closed, cutting off the bridge from view, she spoke softly. Your doctor sounds concerned. Is something wrong with my physiology? McCoy gets concerned about everything, Kirk said with a slight smile. It's his job. But he's the best medical officer in Starfleet. If there's something we need to know, he'll tell us. The turbolift descended through the Enterprise's decks. Diana stood perfectly still, but Kirk sensed the coiled tension in her, a warrior forced into inactivity, processing a universe that made no sense according to her understanding. You're adapting remarkably well, Kirk observed. Most people pulled into a completely foreign reality would be more distressed. I am Amazonian, Diana said simply. We are trained from childhood to face the unexpected with clear minds and steady hearts. Fear serves no purpose when action is required. She paused. Though I confess, when I saw those stars through your viewport, when I realized how far from everything I knew I had been cast, the fear was there. I simply chose not to let it control me. That takes strength, Kirk said. A different kind than physical power, but just as important. The turbolift doors opened to reveal the corridor to sickbay. McCoy stood waiting, his expression a mixture of excitement and worry that Kirk had learned to recognize over years of serving together. Bones, what did you find? McCoy gestured them into sickbay, where the bed displays showed complex readings Kirk couldn't fully interpret. I found proof that everything Spock said about parallel universes is correct. Diana's cellular structure is human, specifically Earth human. The DNA markers are unmistakable. She's from Earth. But not our Earth, Diana said. Exactly. Your DNA includes markers that don't exist in our human genome. Enhancements that appear to be, well, I can only call them divine intervention, for lack of a better term. Your muscle tissue is reinforced with a protein structure that shouldn't be possible. Your bones contain a crystalline matrix that makes them virtually unbreakable. Your healing factor operates on principles I can't explain with conventional medicine. McCoy pulled up another display. But here's what really concerns me. The chronoton radiation you were exposed to during the rift transit? It's still in your system, and it's interacting with these enhanced aspects of your physiology in ways I don't understand. Your power levels, for lack of a better term, are fluctuating. I have felt it, Diana admitted. When I stood before the Klingon, I reached for my strength as I always have, and it was diminished. Not gone, but muted, as if trying to lift a great weight while underwater. The radiation is creating a kind of dimensional dissonance, McCoy explained. Your body is trying to adapt to this universe's physical laws, but the process is causing interference with your God-granted abilities. The good news is, the radiation is decaying. You're metabolizing it at an incredible rate. In a few days, maybe a week, it should be completely cleared from your system. And then? Diana asked. Then, theoretically, your full abilities should return, McCoy said. But I can't promise anything. We're in completely uncharted territory here. Kirk watched Diana process this information. Her expression remained calm, but he saw the calculation behind her eyes, a warrior assessing her capabilities, determining what she could and couldn't do in her current state. I am still stronger than any normal human, Diana said. Still faster, still more durable. The lasso still functions, my bracelets still protect me. I am diminished, but I am not helpless. No one said you were helpless, Kirk assured her. But it's important you know your current limitations. In battle, knowing your weaknesses is as vital as knowing your strengths. Diana agreed. She looked at McCoy with genuine gratitude. Thank you, Doctor, for your honesty. Many healers would have hidden such truths to avoid causing concern. McCoy's expression softened. Well, I figure a warrior princess from another dimension can handle the truth. Uhura's voice came through the intercom, urgent. Captain Kirk, we're receiving a distress call. A Federation colony on Phi Delta 4 is under attack. They're requesting immediate assistance. Kirk's hand went to his communicator. What kind of attack, Lieutenant? Unknown, sir. The transmission is breaking up, but they mentioned raiders, heavily armed. The colony's defenses are failing. Kirk exchanged glances with Diana, and in that moment, he saw the light that came into her eyes, the unmistakable readiness of a warrior who just found a purpose. How far to Phi Delta 4, Mr. Spock? Kirk asked. 17 hours at maximum warp, Captain. Spock's voice replied. Set course, maximum warp. Battle stations. Kirk started toward the door, then paused, looking back at Diana. You wanted to know what kind of warriors travel the stars in my time. You're about to find out. Diana's hand went to her lasso, and despite everything she'd lost, despite being stranded in an alien universe with her powers weakened, she smiled. It was the smile of an Amazon going to war. The Enterprise streaked through space at maximum warp, every system pushed to its limits. Kirk stood in the briefing room with his senior staff, the tactical display showing Phi Delta 4, a small Federation colony of 2,000 civilians, mostly scientists, and their families studying the planet's unique crystalline formations. The raiders hit fast and hard, Spock reported, calling up sensor data. By the time the distress call reached us, the colony's defensive shields were already at 40%. Communications have been intermittent since. Who are they? Kirk demanded. Orion pirates? Klingon renegades? Unknown. The transmission quality was too poor for visual identification. Spock's fingers moved across his console. However, the attack pattern suggests experienced military tactics rather than opportunistic piracy. Diana stood near the viewport, her armor catching the light from the tactical displays. She'd been silent since entering the briefing room, but Kirk saw her mind working, analyzing, strategizing, preparing. Princess, Kirk said, you don't have to involve yourself in this. You're a civilian as far as Starfleet is concerned. You could remain on the ship while we... While you what, Captain? Diana turned from the viewport, her blue eyes sharp. While you attempt to save innocent lives from those who would harm them? That is precisely why I must involve myself. She moved to the tactical display, studying it with clear military understanding. You said you have protocols, rules of engagement. Tell me, does your prime directive forbid you from defending Federation citizens? No, Kirk admitted. Federation colonies fall under our protection. We're authorized to use whatever force is necessary. Then we are in agreement for once. Diana's finger traced the colony's position on the display. How many raiders? Spock raised an eyebrow. Preliminary sensor readings suggest 3 ships, medium-sized cruisers. Combined firepower roughly equivalent to the Enterprise, though their vessels appear older and less well-maintained. Numbers mean nothing if they lack discipline, Diana said. I have faced armies with only my sisters beside me. 3 ships can be defeated if the strategy is sound. Scotty leaned forward, his engineering mind clearly engaged. Begging your pardon, Princess, but this isn't ancient warfare. Space combat requires understanding your enemy's capabilities and exploiting their weaknesses, Diana finished. The weapons may be different, Mr. Scott, but war remains war. Tell me, these raiders, do they fight for honor or for profit? Profit, most likely, Kirk said, seeing where she was going. Pirates want salvage, not casualties. They'll break off if the cost becomes too high. Then you make the cost unbearable. Diana's smile was predatory. Show them that this prize is defended by those who will not yield, who will fight with such ferocity that no treasure is worth the blood it would cost. McCoy cleared his throat. That's all well and good, but you're still recovering from chronotin radiation exposure. Your powers are compromised. Jumping into a combat situation in your current state is exactly what a warrior does when innocents are threatened. Diana interrupted, though her tone remained respectful. Doctor, I appreciate your concern. But I did not ask to be brought to this universe. I did not ask to be weakened. Yet here I am, and people are dying. What kind of champion would I be if I hid behind my diminished state, while others suffered? The briefing room fell silent. Kirk understood her position. He'd made similar arguments himself, when injured or exhausted but facing a crisis. The need to act, to protect, overrode personal limitation. You'll follow my orders, Kirk said finally. This is my ship, my command. If I tell you to stand down, you stand down. Agreed? Diana met his gaze steadily. If your orders serve justice and protect the innocent, I will follow them gladly. If they do not, she left the implication hanging. Kirk decided not to push the point. They'd cross that bridge if they came to it. Mr. Spock, tactical analysis. Best approach to Phi Delta 4? The colony is located in a valley surrounded by crystalline formations that interfere with sensor readings, Spock explained. The raiders are using this natural interference to mask their exact positions. I recommend approaching at high impulse with shields raised, phasers charged. Once we have visual confirmation. Captain? Uhura's voice cut through the intercom. We're receiving another transmission from the colony. It's the administrator, Dr. Ellen Shaw. She says the raiders have breached the main facility. They're taking hostages. Kirk's jaw tightened. Hostages changed everything. A simple defense became a rescue operation, fraught with complications. Put her through. The view screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged woman with blood streaking down her face. How many hostages? Kirk demanded. 200, maybe more. Families, children. An explosion rocked the transmission. Shaw ducked, covering her head. Please, Captain Kirk. We're scientists, not soldiers. We can't. The transmission cut to static. Kirk slammed his fist on the briefing table. Estimated time to arrival? 14 hours, 32 minutes, Spock replied. We'll be too late, McCoy said quietly. That 1-hour deadline. Then we give them a reason to extend it, Kirk said. He turned to Uhura. Lieutenant, send a message to those raiders. Tell them the Enterprise is en route with a full security complement, and that any harm to those hostages will be met with the full force of Starfleet justice. Make it clear we're tracking them, and there's nowhere in this sector they can hide. Aye, sir. Diana stepped closer to Kirk, her voice low. Threatening them may provoke them to kill the hostages to eliminate witnesses. Or it may make them think twice about escalating. Kirk countered. Raiders want profit, not Federation pursuit. If they think we're coming in force, they might negotiate. And if they don't? Kirk met her eyes. Then we fight. But we exhaust every option first. That's how Starfleet operates. Diana's expression was unreadable. I hope your way works, Captain. For those hostages' sake. The next 14 hours were among the longest of Kirk's career. The Enterprise raced through space while the crew prepared for combat. Security teams ran drills. Scotty coaxed every ounce of speed from the engines. Spock analyzed what little sensor data they had, building tactical models. And Diana trained. Kirk found her in the gymnasium, moving through combat forms with a grace that made his security officers look clumsy by comparison. Even diminished, her speed was remarkable. Punches and kicks flowing into each other with perfect precision, the golden lasso spinning and striking invisible opponents. She stopped when she noticed him watching, her breathing barely elevated despite the obvious intensity of her workout. Preparing for battle? Kirk asked. Always. Diana wiped sweat from her brow. On Themyscira, we train every day. A warrior's skills must be maintained like a blade, constantly honed, never neglected. Kirk stepped onto the training mat. Show me. Diana tilted her head, curious. You wish to spar with me, Captain? I want to understand what you're capable of, even in your weakened state. If we're going into combat together, I need to know. A slight smile crossed Diana's face. Very well. But do not say I didn't warn you. They circled each other. Kirk had trained in hand-to-hand combat his entire career, faced opponents from a dozen species. But when Diana moved, it was like fighting a storm. She was simply there, inside his guard, her hand stopping a fraction of an inch from his throat. Dead, she said simply, stepping back. They tried again. This time Kirk lasted 3 seconds longer before finding himself on his back, Diana's knee pressed against his chest, her strength undeniable even while holding back. You fight well for someone untrained in Amazonian arts, Diana said, offering her hand to help him up. But you rely too much on strength, not enough on leverage and timing. Kirk accepted her hand, rising. Any other observations? You lead with courage, which is admirable. But courage without wisdom gets warriors killed. Diana's expression grew serious. When we reach that colony, Captain, you must let me do what I do best. I am a warrior, perhaps the greatest warrior my world has ever known. Use me accordingly. As long as you remember that I'm still in command, Kirk said. I would not serve under a leader I did not respect, Diana replied. But respect flows both ways. Trust me to know when combat requires actions your rules might forbid. Before Kirk could respond, Uhura's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. Captain Kirk to the bridge. We're approaching Phi Delta 4. Kirk and Diana exchanged glances, then ran. The bridge was tense with anticipation when they arrived. On the view screen, Phi Delta 4 hung in space, its surface glittering with crystalline formations. 3 ships orbited the planet, sleek, aggressive designs Kirk didn't recognize. Romulan configuration, Spock reported. But the markings suggest independent raiders, not Imperial forces. They're hailing us. On screen, Kirk ordered. The view screen shifted to show a scarred, hard-faced humanoid sitting in a dimly lit command chair. Behind him, Kirk could see a crew that looked more like mercenaries than military. I am Vorik, the raider leader said, his voice cold. You are the Federation vessel that threatened us. How unfortunate that you've arrived just as we were preparing to demonstrate our seriousness. Release the hostages, Kirk said flatly. There's no profit in murder. Vorek's smile was cruel. On the contrary, Captain. Dead witnesses tell no tales. And Federation pursuit is far less aggressive when they have bodies to mourn rather than living victims to rescue. He gestured off-screen. Bring one forward. A young girl, no more than 10 years old, was dragged into view. She was crying, terrified. Diana's hand went to her lasso, her entire body coiled to strike. Vorek pulled out a disruptor, pressing it to the child's head. You have 1 minute to withdraw, Captain Kirk. Or I paint my bridge with her blood. Kirk's mind raced through options with the speed of desperation. Withdraw and the raiders would kill everyone. Attack and the girl died first. Negotiate and buy time, but for what? 20 seconds, Captain, Vorek said, pressing the disruptor harder against the child's temple. She whimpered, tears streaming down her face. Diana moved. One moment she stood beside Kirk's command chair. The next, she was gone, a blur of motion toward the transporter room that left the bridge crew stunned. Belay that! Kirk shouted, but Diana was already out of sight. He spun to Spock. Lock onto her signal. She is already in transporter room 3. Spock reported, his eyebrow arched in surprise at her speed. Captain, she cannot transport to their ship. Their shields are raised. Kirk's communicator chirped. Diana's voice came through, steady and commanding. Captain Kirk, I need you to trust me. Lower their shields. That's impossible without. Find a way. You have brilliant people on this ship. Use them. A pause. Please. Vorek's voice cut through the bridge speakers. 10 seconds, Captain? I grow impatient. Kirk made his decision in a heartbeat, the same instinct that had saved his crew countless times. Spock, can we modulate a phaser beam to disrupt their shield harmonics? Theoretically possible, but it would require precise frequency matching in. Spock's fingers flew across his console. I have it. Their shields use an older Romulan configuration. If we match the phase variance exactly, we can create a 3-second window. 3 seconds? Kirk said. That's not enough time to. For her it might be. Spock replied, and Kirk heard genuine curiosity in the Vulcan's voice. 5 seconds, Vorek announced. The child's sobs were audible through the view screen. Do it, Kirk ordered. Transporter room 3, prepare to beam on my mark. Spock dropped their shields. Now. The Enterprise's phasers lanced out, striking the Raider ship's shields with surgical precision. For exactly 3 seconds, the shields flickered. Energizing, the transporter chief's voice confirmed. On the view screen, golden light materialized behind Vorek. Diana appeared, her lasso already spinning. Before anyone on the Raider bridge could react, the golden rope snaked around Vorek's wrist, yanking the disruptor away from the girl's head. Vorek roared, trying to pull free, but the lasso held him like a vice. Diana jerked him forward with strength that made the hardened Raider stumble. In the same motion, she grabbed the child and pulled her behind her protective stance. Your shields are down, Diana said calmly, though her eyes blazed with barely contained fury. Captain Kirk's ship has weapons trained on your bridge. Release all hostages immediately, or I will show you what an Amazon does to cowards who threaten children. Vorek's crew reached for weapons. Diana's free hand moved in a blur, one of her silver bracelets flashed, and an energy bolt from a disruptor deflected harmlessly into the bulkhead. I am Diana of Themyscira, she said, her voice carrying the authority of 3,000 years of warrior tradition. I have fought gods and demons. What are you compared to that? Kirk watched the standoff unfold, his hand hovering over the weapons console. One wrong move and this became a bloodbath. Vorek's face twisted with rage, but Kirk saw calculation in his eyes. The Raider leader was weighing odds, measuring his chances. Finally, he nodded sharply. Stand down, Vorek growled to his crew. Then to Diana. The hostages are in cargo bay 2. Take them. But know this, Amazon, You've made an enemy today. I have made many enemies, Diana replied. You are hardly the first, and you will not be the last. She touched the child's shoulder gently. Stay close to me, little one. You're safe now. Kirk activated his communicator. Transporter room, lock onto all human life signs on that raider ship. Beam them directly to Cargo Bay 3. Aye, Captain. We're reading 217 human signatures. Beginning transport. On the view screen, Diana maintained her grip on Vorek's wrist with the lasso. You will answer one question truthfully before I leave. Why target this colony? The dilithium samples are worth less than the cost of this raid. Vorek's mouth opened, and Kirk saw him fight against the compulsion. But the lasso's power was undeniable. We were hired. Paid to create chaos, to make the Federation look weak in this sector. By whom? Diana demanded. I don't know. Vorek's face reddened with the effort of resistance. The contact was anonymous. Romulan credits transferred through shadow accounts. We never saw their face. Diana's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. Truth. She released the lasso, and Vorek stumbled backward. Captain Kirk, I'm ready for transport. Golden light enveloped Diana and the child. They materialized on the Enterprise bridge moments later, and the little girl immediately burst into tears, clinging to Diana's armor. It's all right, Diana said softly, kneeling to the child's level. You're safe now. You were very brave. Kirk stood, his voice sharp. Mr. Sulu, target their weapons and engines. Fire. The Enterprise's phasers struck with precision, crippling the raider vessels but leaving life support intact. The three ships listed in space powerless. Send a message to Starfleet Command, Kirk ordered. We have raiders disabled at Phi Delta 4, requesting prisoner transport and investigation into possible Romulan involvement in attacks on Federation colonies. Aye, sir. Uhura acknowledged. Kirk turned to Diana, who was still comforting the child. A medical team arrived on the bridge, and Diana reluctantly released the girl to their care, watching until she disappeared into the turbolift. That was reckless, Kirk said, though his tone held more admiration than anger. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, Diana replied simply. And neither was she. You disobeyed a direct order by leaving the bridge. You didn't give me an order to stay, Diana countered, a slight smile playing at her lips. You were too busy calculating the impossible odds. Spock approached, his tricorder already scanning. Fascinating. The transporter log shows you moved 47.3 meters in 2.1 seconds. Even accounting for your diminished state, your speed is remarkable. Amazons are trained to act while others debate, Diana said. She looked at Kirk seriously. I understand your methods, Captain. Negotiation, strategy, minimizing casualties. These are worthy goals. But when a child's life hangs in the balance, sometimes the only answer is immediate action. Kirk wanted to argue, to explain the chain of command, the importance of protocol. But the truth was, Diana had saved over 200 lives by acting on instinct while he'd been paralyzed by procedure. Your Earth must be an interesting place, Kirk said finally. If it produces warriors like you. Pain flickered across Diana's face. Was an interesting place. Here, there is no Themyscira, no Amazon save me. I am the last of my kind in this universe. McCoy's voice came through the intercom. Jim, we've got all the colonists in Cargo Bay 3. Most are shaken but unharmed. A few need medical attention, but nothing critical. Dr. Shaw is asking to speak with you and our mysterious rescuer. We're on our way, Bones. Kirk gestured to Diana. Shall we go accept their gratitude? Diana nodded, but her expression was distant. As they walked to the turbolift, Kirk noticed her hand remained on her lasso, fingers absently tracing the golden coils. What did you mean? Kirk asked. When you told Vorek you'd fought gods? Exactly what I said. Diana's eyes met his. In my world, the Greek gods are real. Ares, god of war. Hades, lord of the underworld. Even Zeus himself, king of Olympus. I am daughter to Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, but some legends claim Zeus himself gave me life from clay. Legends, Kirk repeated carefully. Perhaps. Or perhaps truth that your scientific universe cannot accept. Diana smiled sadly. Another thing I have lost, the certainty of divine purpose. If there are no gods here, then what am I? Just a warrior without a war, a champion without a cause. The turbolift doors opened to Cargo Bay 3. Inside, 200 colonists stood in clusters, families reunited, children clinging to parents. When Diana entered, a hush fell over the crowd. Then Dr. Shaw stepped forward, her face still bearing traces of blood from the attack, and began to clap. Others joined her, and within seconds, the entire cargo bay erupted in applause. Diana stood frozen, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Kirk saw her warriors bearing falter for the first time since she'd arrived on his ship. You saved us, Shaw said, her voice thick with emotion. That monster was going to kill my daughter. She gestured to the little girl from the view screen, now safe in her mother's arms. You risked your life for people you don't even know. It's what I do, Diana said simply. What I was trained to do. Then thank the gods you were here, Shaw said. Diana's expression tightened almost imperceptibly at the mention of gods, but she accepted Shaw's embrace with grace. Kirk watched from the doorway, and a realization crystallized in his mind. Diana of Themyscira was perhaps the most dangerous being he'd ever encountered, not because of her power, but because of her absolute certainty. She saw injustice and acted. She recognized evil and fought it. No debate, no committees, no prime directive calculations. It was admirable. It was terrifying. And it was going to cause problems. The Enterprise remained in orbit around Phi Delta 4 for another 18 hours while Starfleet security teams arrived to secure the disabled raider vessels and begin interrogations. Kirk filed his official report, carefully omitting certain details about Diana's capabilities, information that would raise too many questions he couldn't answer. He found her in the observation lounge, staring out at the planet below. She'd removed her tiara, and her dark hair fell loose around her shoulders, making her look less like a warrior princess and more like a woman carrying the weight of impossible loss. The colonists are asking about you, Kirk said, approaching carefully. They want to thank you properly. Dr. Shaw wants to name the new research facility after you. Diana's reflection in the viewport showed a sad smile. I need no monuments, Captain. Gratitude is its own reward. Kirk stood beside her, following her gaze to the planet. You're thinking about your Earth. Your home. I'm thinking about purpose, Diana corrected. On Themyscira, I knew exactly who I was meant to be. Champion of the Amazons, defender of Paradise Island, warrior for truth and justice. Here, she gestured at the stars. Here I am adrift. A relic from another reality with no place in yours. You saved 200 lives today, Kirk pointed out. That sounds like purpose to me. One crisis, Captain? What about tomorrow? What about the day after? Diana turned to face him. Your Federation spans hundreds of worlds. Surely suffering exists somewhere in this vast territory. Injustice, oppression, cruelty. What will you do when we encounter it? Stand aside because your prime directive demands it? Kirk had been expecting this conversation since the moment Diana materialized on his ship. The prime directive exists because we learned, painfully, that imposing our values on other cultures, no matter how noble our intentions, causes more harm than good. Does it? Diana challenged. Or is it simply easier to claim moral complexity than to face the hard truth that sometimes the strong must protect the weak, regardless of cultural differences? You're oversimplifying. Am I? Diana's voice remained calm, but her intensity was palpable. Tell me, Captain Kirk, if you encountered a world where slavery was practiced, would you stand aside because it was their natural development? That's not. Answer the question, Diana pressed. A simple yes or no. Would you watch beings suffer in chains because interfering might disrupt their culture? Kirk's jaw tightened. The truth was, he'd bent the Prime Directive more times than Starfleet Command knew. He'd found creative interpretations, exploited loopholes, and occasionally simply ignored it when his conscience demanded action. It's complicated, he said finally. It's cowardice disguised as wisdom, Diana said, though her tone held no accusation, just profound disappointment. I have lived among warriors who withdrew from the world rather than face battles they could not win. I know the comfort of claiming moral superiority while avoiding moral responsibility. Your Federation has simply codified that comfort into law. Before Kirk could respond, Spock's voice came through the intercom. Captain, we are receiving a Priority 1 transmission from Starfleet Command. Admiral Carmack wishes to speak with you immediately. It is marked classified. Kirk exchanged glances with Diana. I'll take it in my quarters. Princess, we'll continue this conversation later. Will we? Diana asked. Or will you simply find another crisis to distract from questions you'd rather not answer? Kirk left without replying, because she was absolutely right. In his quarters, Admiral Carmack's stern face filled the view screen. The Admiral was old-school Starfleet, a by-the-book officer who valued protocol above all else. Captain Kirk, your report on the Phi Delta IV incident has raised several concerns at Starfleet Command. The colonists are safe, Admiral. The raiders are in custody. I'd call that a successful mission. Indeed. However, your report mentions a civilian, this Diana of Themyscira, who participated in a combat operation without authorization, transported onto a hostile vessel, and interrogated prisoners using unknown technology. Carmack's eyes narrowed. I want a full briefing on this individual. Where she came from, what her capabilities are, and why you've allowed her to remain aboard your vessel. Kirk had prepared for this. Diana is a refugee from a parallel universe, brought here by a Klingon temporal weapon experiment. She has unique abilities we're still cataloging. As for allowing her to remain aboard, she saved over 200 Federation citizens. That earns her the benefit of the doubt. Unique abilities, Carmack repeated flatly. Captain, Starfleet Intelligence has analyzed your sensor logs from the rescue. This woman moved at speeds that should be impossible, deflected directed energy weapons with her bare hands, and somehow compelled a hardened raider to tell the truth against his will. These are not simply unique abilities. These represent a potential security threat. With respect, Admiral, Diana of Themyscira is not a threat. She's an ally. An uncontrolled, unvetted ally operating outside any command structure. Carmack countered. Captain, I'm ordering you to proceed to Starbase 12. Diana will be transferred to Starfleet Intelligence for proper evaluation and debriefing. If her story checks out and she's deemed safe, we'll find an appropriate place for her. But she cannot simply wander the galaxy on your ship, acting as some kind of vigilante. Kirk's hands clenched into fists. Admiral, Diana isn't some weapon to be studied and controlled. She's a person who's lost everything, her world, her people, her entire reality. The least we can do is treat her with dignity. Dignity isn't the issue, Captain. Security is. Your orders stand. Proceed to Starbase 12. Carmack out. The view screen went dark, leaving Kirk staring at his own reflection. He knew what Starfleet Intelligence would do: endless tests, psychological evaluations, attempts to understand and potentially weaponize Diana's abilities. They treat her like an asset to be exploited rather than a person to be helped. He also knew Diana would never submit to such treatment. Kirk found her in the ship's small arboretum, a quiet space filled with earth plants from various colonies. She sat on a bench beneath a flowering tree, the lasso coiled in her lap, her fingers tracing its golden surface. Starfleet wants to debrief you, Kirk said, sitting beside her. At Starbase 12. They'll have questions about your abilities, your origins. And if I refuse? Diana asked calmly. Then we have a problem. Diana lifted the lasso, studying it in the artificial sunlight. This was forged by Hephaestus, god of the forge, from the golden girdle of Gaia herself. It compels truth from all who are bound by it. On my world, it was a sacred trust, a reminder that justice must be built on honesty, not deception. She turned to Kirk, and her blue eyes held ancient wisdom. I could bind you with this lasso, Captain, and ask you one question. Do you truly believe Starfleet intelligence will treat me with dignity and respect? What would you be compelled to answer? Kirk met her gaze steadily. No. I don't believe they would. Truth, Diana said softly. You see, Captain? The lasso works even without being used. Sometimes simply asking the right question is enough. So what will you do? Kirk asked. Diana stood, her warriors bearing returning. I will not be caged, studied, or controlled. I am Amazonian. We bow to no authority save our own conscience and the dictates of justice. She looked at Kirk with something approaching sympathy. You are a good man, Captain Kirk. You bend rules when your heart tells you they're wrong. You risk your career to do what you believe is right. But you're still bound by chains of your own making, duty, protocol, the chain of command. Those chains keep civilization functioning, Kirk argued. Without structure, without law, without courage to act when law fails, civilization becomes a beautiful prison. Diana interrupted. I have seen it before on my own world. The Amazons created paradise by withdrawing from mankind's chaos. We built laws, traditions, perfect order. And in doing so, we abandoned the very people we could have helped. She moved to the viewport, her reflection ghostly against the stars. I will not make that mistake again, Captain. Not in this universe. If Starfleet wishes to help me, truly help me find my place in this reality, then I will cooperate gladly. But if they seek only to control me, to turn me into a weapon or lock me away as a curiosity. Her hand touched the lasso. Then I will leave this ship and find my own path. Kirk stood, his mind racing through options. He could confine Diana to quarters, but he doubted the ship's security could hold her. He could reason with her, but she'd already made her position clear. He could follow orders and deliver her to Starfleet intelligence, watching them destroy her spirit in the name of security. Or he could do what James Kirk did best, find the third option nobody else saw. What if, Kirk said slowly, there was another way? What if you didn't have to submit to intelligence's interrogation, and I didn't have to violate direct orders? Diana turned curious. I'm listening. Starfleet has a program. Civilian specialists who serve aboard starships in advisory roles. Archaeologists, linguists, cultural experts. They're not Starfleet officers, but they work alongside us, providing expertise we lack. Kirk's mind was working faster now, building the framework. What if you became a cultural and tactical advisor? Someone who helps us understand threats and situations from a warrior's perspective? You would trust me with such a role? I'd trust you more than most of my crew, Kirk admitted. You've already proven your value. And it would give you legitimate status, protection from intelligence's probing. They couldn't touch you without going through me first. Diana studied him carefully. And in exchange, I would be bound by your authority. Subject to your orders. In exchange, you'd have a purpose, Kirk countered. A way to use your skills to help people across the galaxy. Isn't that what you want? For a long moment, Diana said nothing. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. I accept, Captain Kirk. But understand, if we encounter injustice that your prime directive forbids you from addressing, I reserve the right to act according to my own conscience. Kirk took her hand, feeling the strength in her grip. I wouldn't expect anything less. They shook, warrior to warrior, sealing an alliance that would either save lives or end Kirk's career. Possibly both. Kirk's strategy bought them 3 weeks before Admiral Comac summoned him to Starbase 12 for an in-person meeting. The Enterprise docked at the massive starbase, its ring-like structure rotating slowly against the backdrop of stars. Diana stood beside Kirk in the transporter room, dressed not in her armor but in civilian clothing Uhura had replicated for her, simple but dignified. "You don't have to come with me," Kirk said. "I can handle Kamak." "A warrior does not send others to fight her battles," Diana replied. She'd left her lasso and bracelets in her quarters at Kirk's request, a gesture of goodwill that she'd agreed to reluctantly. "Besides, I'm curious to meet this admiral who thinks he can command an Amazon." The transporter beam deposited them in Starbase 12's VIP reception area. Admiral Kamak waited with 2 Starfleet intelligence officers. A human woman with sharp eyes and a Vulcan male whose expression was unreadable even by Vulcan standards. "Captain Kirk," Kamak said curtly. "And this must be Diana of Themyscira." Diana inclined her head but didn't bow. "Admiral. Commander Tvek, Lieutenant Commander Barnes," Kamak gestured to his companions. "Starfleet intelligence. They have questions regarding your unique situation." "I'm certain they do," Diana said calmly. "As do I. Perhaps we can exchange information rather than conduct an interrogation." Barnes smiled thinly. "We prefer the term debriefing, but call it what you wish. We've analyzed Captain Kirk's reports and the Enterprise sensor logs. Your abilities defy known physics. We need to understand them." "Why?" Diana asked directly. "So you can replicate them? Weaponize them? Find ways to counter them in case I become a threat?" Tvek's eyebrow rose fractionally. "Your directness is refreshing." "Yes, those are among our concerns. An individual with your capabilities operating without oversight presents significant security risks." "I could say the same about your Federation," Diana countered. "You possess weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Your ships can travel faster than light. You could conquer whole civilizations if you chose. Yet I'm supposed to trust that your institutions and laws prevent such abuses, while you cannot extend the same trust to me? You're not bound by our institutions or laws," Barnes pointed out. "That's precisely the problem." "Actually," Kirk interjected, "Diana has agreed to serve as a civilian tactical and cultural advisor aboard the Enterprise. That makes her subject to Starfleet regulations and my direct command. She has a defined role and oversight structure." Kamak's eyes narrowed. "You authorize this without approval from Starfleet Command? Emergency protocols allow captains to recruit civilian specialists when circumstances warrant," Kirk replied smoothly. "Given Diana's unique perspective and demonstrated capabilities, I deemed her expertise valuable to our continuing mission." "How convenient," Barnes said dryly. "Tell me, Diana, what happens when Captain Kirk's orders conflict with your personal code of honor? Which takes precedence?" Diana met her gaze steadily. "That depends on the order. I will not commit atrocities in the name of following commands. I will not stand idle while innocents suffer. But I respect Captain Kirk's judgment and his genuine desire to do what's right. So far, we have found common ground." "So far," Tvek repeated. A tellingly conditional statement. "Admiral, I recommend Diana be assigned to a controlled research facility where her abilities can be properly studied and—" "No." Diana's voice was quiet but absolute. "I am not a specimen to be dissected. I am a warrior and a princess. I have agreed to work with Captain Kirk because I respect him and believe in the potential good we can accomplish together. But I will not be imprisoned, even in a laboratory dressed up as a facility." "You may not have a choice," Barnes said, her hand moving subtly toward her phaser. Diana's eyes flashed dangerously. "Neither will you, if you attempt to take me by force." "Stand down, Commander," Kamak ordered sharply. He studied Diana with the calculating gaze of a career officer weighing risks and benefits. "Captain Kirk vouches for you. The colonists of Phi Delta 4 certainly sing your praises. But trust must be earned, not demanded." "Agreed," Diana said. "What would you have me do to earn this trust?" Kamak pulled up a data pad, calling up a star chart. The Enterprise's next assignment is a diplomatic mission to Kavath Prime. The Kavithians are a warrior culture considering Federation membership. Negotiations have been difficult. They view Federation diplomacy as weakness, our peaceful principles as cowardice. Kirk understood where this was going. You want Diana to participate in the negotiations. Show the Kavithians that the Federation attracts strong allies, not just scientists and diplomats. Precisely. If Diana can help secure Kavath Prime's membership while demonstrating she can work within Starfleet protocols, that would go a long way toward addressing our concerns. Carmack's expression hardened. But understand this, any deviation from orders, any unauthorized action, and intelligence will take custody immediately. Are we clear? Diana looked to Kirk, a silent question in her eyes. He gave a slight nod. This was a reasonable test, one they could navigate together. Clear, Diana said. I will help you with these Kavithians. But not because I fear your intelligence division. Because proving myself through action is the Amazon way. The briefing continued for another hour, with Tvek and Barnes pressing for technical details about Diana's abilities. She answered some questions, deflected others, and outright refused to discuss certain aspects of her powers. Kirk watched the dance of interrogation and evasion with professional appreciation. Diana handled herself like someone accustomed to political maneuvering, not just combat. Finally, Carmack dismissed them. As Kirk and Diana walked toward the transporter room, she spoke quietly. Your Admiral doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust anyone, Kirk replied. It's what makes him good at his job. But you impressed him, I could tell. The fact that you're willing to prove yourself rather than demand acceptance carries weight. On Themyscira, a warrior's worth is demonstrated through trials, Diana said. Combat, tests of wisdom, challenges of character. I understand this approach. What concerns me is what happens if I fail their test. You won't fail, Kirk assured her. How can you be certain? Kirk smiled. Because I've seen you in action. And because I'm betting the Kavithians will respect you more than they've respected any diplomat Starfleet has sent. They materialized back aboard the Enterprise, where Spock was waiting with a full briefing on Kavath Prime. The Kavithians were humanoid, slightly taller than average, with a rigid honor-based culture that valued martial prowess above all else. Previous diplomatic teams had been rebuffed with barely concealed contempt. The Kavithian Supreme Commander Zero believes the Federation seeks only to exploit their strategic position near the Klingon border, Spock explained. He has stated publicly that he will only negotiate with warriors, not smooth-tongued bureaucrats. Diana studied the cultural profile with intense focus. Their honor code, it resembles aspects of Amazonian tradition, but with a greater emphasis on individual glory rather than collective duty. They value direct action, despise deception, which makes them particularly difficult for standard diplomatic approaches, Kirk said. They see negotiation itself as a form of weakness. Then perhaps standard approaches are the wrong strategy, Diana suggested. She looked up from the data pad, her eyes bright with strategic thinking. Captain, what if instead of asking them to join the Federation through words, we demonstrated why joining serves their interests through action? Spock's eyebrow rose. You propose a practical demonstration rather than theoretical negotiation. Intriguing. The Kavithians respect strength and honor, Diana continued. They need to see that the Federation embodies both, not just intellectual ideals. If we can show them warriors who fight for justice, diplomats who speak with honest conviction, and a cause worth pledging their loyalty to. Kirk was already formulating the plan. We need to create a situation where they could observe us in action. Something that demonstrates Federation values without violating the Prime Directive or staging an artificial scenario. The Orion Syndicate has been conducting raids near Kavithian space, Spock noted. Intelligence reports suggest an attack on a Kavithian mining colony is imminent. If we were to assist in defending that colony, without being asked, we'd appear opportunistic, Kirk finished. But if the Kavithians invited us to demonstrate our capabilities, Diana smiled. Then you simply need to make them curious enough to issue that invitation. The Enterprise set course for Kavath Prime at maximum warp. En route, Diana trained with the ship's security teams, teaching them Amazonian combat techniques while learning Federation tactics in return. Kirk watched her spar with his best officers and saw the respect growing in their eyes. This was no fragile diplomat needing protection, but a warrior who could teach them new ways to fight. When they arrived at Kavath Prime, Kirk hailed the planet with Diana standing beside him in her full armor. The effect was immediate. The Kavathian Supreme Commander Zeril appeared on the view screen, his scarred face registering clear surprise at seeing a warrior woman in classical armor on a Federation starship. I am Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. This is Diana of Themyscira, our tactical advisor. We've come to discuss Kavath Prime's potential Federation membership. Zeril's eyes fixed on Diana, assessing her with a warrior's practiced evaluation. A woman in armor. The Federation sends curiosities now instead of the usual weak-voiced negotiators. Diana stepped forward before Kirk could respond. I am no curiosity, Zeril of Kavath. I am a warrior princess from a civilization that valued combat skill above all else. I wear this armor because I have earned it through battle, not because it makes an impressive costume. Zeril leaned forward, intrigued. Bold words. Can you back them with action? Name the test. Diana replied. I will prove myself by any honorable standard you choose. A slow smile spread across Zeril's face. Now this is interesting. Very well, warrior woman. Come to the surface. Face our champion in single combat. If you prevail, we will hear what your captain has to say about this Federation. If you fail, he shrugged, then you will have died with honor, which is more than most Federation weaklings can claim. Kirk opened his mouth to object, but Diana placed a hand on his arm. I accept, she said. The view screen went dark. Kirk turned to her. You can't seriously be. This is what I do, Captain, Diana said calmly. Trust me. The Kavathian arena was carved from black volcanic stone, a circular pit surrounded by thousands of spectators. Diana stood at its center, her armor gleaming under the planet's twin suns, the lasso coiled at her side. Kirk watched from a viewing platform with Spock and McCoy, trying to appear confident, while his stomach twisted with concern. This is madness, McCoy muttered. We're letting her fight some alien gladiator to prove a political point. Diana volunteered, Kirk reminded him, though he shared the doctor's unease. And she knows what she's doing. Does she? McCoy gestured at the arena floor. Her powers are still recovering from chronotin exposure. She's not at full strength. Spock's tricorder hummed softly. According to my readings, Diana's capabilities have returned to approximately 87% of baseline. Still formidable, but potentially inadequate depending on her opponent's abilities. Zeril approached their platform, flanked by two warriors in ceremonial armor. Your Diana shows courage, Captain Kirk. Most Federation representatives would have negotiated, delayed, found excuses. She simply accepted the challenge. She's not like most people, Kirk said carefully. I can see that. Zeril's expression was approving. Our champion is Krevtok, undefeated in 43 challenges. He has killed 17 opponents, crippled 26 others. If your warrior survives with honor, regardless of outcome, Kavath Prime will hear your proposal. And if she wins? Kirk asked. Zeril laughed, a harsh bark of sound. No one defeats Krevtok. But I admire your optimism. A horn blast echoed across the arena. The crowd roared as massive gates ground open on the opposite side from Diana. What emerged made McCoy's face go pale. Krevtok stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body a mass of muscle and scar tissue. He wore minimal armor. Just bracers and a chest plate, and carried a weapon that looked like a combination of axe and spear. His skin was deep red, his eyes yellow and predatory. Good God, McCoy breathed. Jim, she can't. She can. Kirk said, forcing conviction into his voice. Watch. Diana assessed her opponent with calm professionalism, her stance relaxed but ready. Krevtok circled her like a predator, his weapons spinning in complex patterns designed to intimidate. You are small. Krevtok's voice boomed across the arena. Fragile. I will try to make your death quick, out of respect for your courage. How generous, Diana replied. She removed her tiara, handing it to an arena attendant. I offer you the same courtesy. Yield now, and you need not face defeat before your people. The crowd's roar intensified, half outrage at her audacity, half appreciation for her spirit. Krevtok's response was to charge. He moved with shocking speed for his size, the axe spear cutting through the air toward Diana's head. She didn't dodge. Instead, she raised her bracelets, and the weapon struck them with a clang that reverberated through the arena. The impact drove Diana back 3 meters, her boots carving furrows in the stone floor. But she remained standing, unharmed. Krevtok's eyes widened. He struck again, a flurry of blows that would have dismembered any normal opponent. Diana's bracelets flashed in the sunlight, deflecting each strike with precision that bordered on supernatural. The crowd fell silent, stunned. Impossible, Zero muttered. No armor should withstand Krevtok's strength. Those aren't ordinary bracers, Spock observed, his tricorder readings spiking. The material appears to be indestructible, possibly of divine origin according to Diana's claims. Kirk leaned forward, watching Diana fight. She was testing Krevtok, learning his patterns, conserving her strength. This wasn't just combat, it was tactical analysis performed at lethal speed. Krevtok roared in frustration, abandoning technique for raw power. He brought his weapon down in an overhead strike that cracked the arena floor. Diana sidestepped, her hand snaking out to grip the weapon's shaft. For a moment they struggled, 3 meters of alien muscle against a woman who should have been hopelessly outmatched. Then Diana twisted, using Krevtok's own momentum against him. The champion stumbled, and Diana drove her fist into his exposed ribs. The impact sounded like thunder. Krevtok flew backward, crashing into the arena wall hard enough to crack stone. He rose slowly, blood trickling from his mouth, disbelief written across his features. You have strength, he gasped. Real strength. Who are you? I told you, Diana said, retrieving her lasso. I am Diana of Themyscira, daughter of Hippolyta, champion of the Amazons. And I have not come to your world to prove myself to you, Krevtok. I came to show you what the Federation truly represents. She advanced, the golden lasso beginning to glow with inner light. Krevtok raised his weapon defensively, but Diana's throw was too fast. The lasso looped around his chest, binding his arms to his sides. Krevtok struggled, his muscles bulging with effort. The lasso held firm. This rope compels truth, Diana said, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. You cannot break it through strength. You cannot escape it through deception. Tell me, Krevtok. Do you fight because you love battle, or because Kavithian culture gives you no other path to honor? Krevtok's mouth opened, and Kirk saw him try to resist. But the lasso's power was absolute. I fight because it is all I know, Krevtok said, the words torn from him. I have killed and crippled because society demands it, not because I desire their deaths. I am trapped in a role I can never escape, forced to be a monster to earn respect. The arena fell into shocked silence. Diana's expression softened with understanding. Then we are alike, you and I, she said gently. Warriors shaped by cultures that valued our strength but forgot we were also human. She released the lasso, and it coiled back to her hand. I do not need to defeat you to prove my point. I need only to show you that strength can serve purposes beyond violence. Krevtok stared at her, confusion and something like hope warring in his eyes. What are you saying? The Federation offers your people a different kind of honor, Diana said, addressing not just Krevtok but the thousands watching. Honor gained through exploration, through protecting others, through using your warrior skills to defend the weak rather than simply dominating them. You can still be warriors, but warriors with purpose beyond endless combat. She extended her hand to Krevtok. I yield this match. Not because you defeated me, but because continuing would prove nothing except that I can hurt you. That is not the lesson I came to teach. For a long moment, Krevtok simply looked at her outstretched hand. Then, slowly, he reached out and clasped it. Diana pulled him to his feet, and the crowd erupted, not in bloodlust, but in something Kirk couldn't quite identify. Perhaps. Or recognition of a truth they'd never been allowed to acknowledge. Zero stood abruptly, his expression unreadable. He descended to the arena floor, approaching Diana and Krevtok. In 43 matches, Krevtok has never been challenged like this, Zero said. You exposed his strength as inadequate, then showed mercy when you could have humiliated him further. He looked at Kirk's viewing platform. Your Federation sends warriors who fight not for glory but for principle. Who possess power but restrain it in service of greater truths. He turned to his people. Perhaps we have been asking the wrong questions. Perhaps the measure of a civilization is not how fiercely it fights, but what it chooses to fight for. Kirk descended to join them, with Spock and McCoy following. Warriors shaped by cultures that valued our strength but forgot we were also human. She released the lasso, and it coiled back to her hand. I do not need to defeat you to prove my point. I need only to show you that strength can serve purposes beyond violence. Krevtok stared at her, confusion and something like hope warring in his eyes. What are you saying? The Federation offers your people a different kind of honor, Diana said, addressing not just Krevtok but the thousands watching. Honor gained through exploration, through protecting others, through using your warrior skills to defend the weak rather than simply dominating them. You can still be warriors, but warriors with purpose beyond endless combat. She extended her hand to Krevtok. I yield this match. Not because you defeated me, but because continuing would prove nothing except that I can hurt you. That is not the lesson I came to teach. For a long moment, Krevtok simply looked at her outstretched hand. Then, slowly, he reached out and clasped it. Diana pulled him to his feet, and the crowd erupted, not in bloodlust, but in something Kirk couldn't quite identify. Perhaps. Or recognition of a truth they'd never been allowed to acknowledge. Zero stood abruptly, his expression unreadable. He descended to the arena floor, approaching Diana and Krevtok. In 43 matches, Krevtok has never been challenged like this, Zero said. You exposed his strength as inadequate, then showed mercy when you could have humiliated him further. He looked at Kirk's viewing platform. Your Federation sends warriors who fight not for glory but for principle. Who possess power but restrain it in service of greater truths. He turned to his people. Perhaps we have been asking the wrong questions. Perhaps the measure of a civilization is not how fiercely it fights, but what it chooses to fight for. Kirk descended to join them, with Spock and McCoy following. Supreme Commander, the Federation doesn't ask Kavath Prime to abandon your warrior traditions. We ask you to channel them toward exploration, discovery, and mutual defense. Your skills, your courage, they would be valued, not dismissed. Zero studied Kirk, then Diana, then his own champion standing quietly beside the Amazon. We will hear your full proposal, Captain Kirk. But know this, it was not your words that opened our minds. It was her. He gestured to Diana. She fought with honor, spoke with truth, and showed strength tempered by wisdom. These are qualities Kavithians respect. Then let us begin, Kirk said. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Diana participated in every session, her presence lending weight to Kirk's arguments. She answered questions about Amazon culture, compared their warrior traditions to Kavithian customs, and gradually built bridges of understanding. When Kavithian generals questioned whether the Federation would respect their martial pride, Diana shared stories of her own struggles reconciling warrior identity with peaceful ideals. On the third day, Zero signed the preliminary membership agreement. This is not surrender to Federation weakness, Zero announced to his council. This is Kavath Prime choosing to expand our definition of honor. We will join this Federation, contribute our strength to their cause, and perhaps teach them that sometimes peace must be defended with warrior spirit. Back aboard the Enterprise, Kirk found Diana in the observation lounge, staring at the stars as Kavath Prime receded behind them. Admiral Carmack will be pleased, Kirk said. You succeeded where 3 diplomatic teams failed. I did what was necessary, Diana replied. But Captain, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Go ahead. If the situation had gone differently, if Krevtok had been truly evil, if the Kavithians had been oppressing others, would your prime directive have prevented you from acting? Would you have stood aside? Kirk was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I want to say no, that I'd find a way to help. But the truth is, I've faced situations where the right action violated regulations, and I've had to make impossible choices. Choices that haunt you, Diana observed. Yes. Diana turned from the viewport. Then we are more alike than I thought, Captain Kirk. We both carry the burden of power restrained by conscience. The difference is that I refuse to accept that burden as permanent. If this universe has taught me anything, it is that laws and rules are tools, not masters. They guide us, but they do not absolve us of moral responsibility. Before Kirk could respond, Red Alert klaxon screamed through the ship. Spock's voice came through urgently. Captain, to the bridge. We are detecting multiple Romulan signatures decloaking around us. They are powering weapons. Kirk and Diana ran. The bridge was chaos controlled by discipline. 6 Romulan warbids surrounded the Enterprise in a perfect spherical formation, their disruptors already glowing with lethal intent. Kirk dropped into his command chair while Diana took position beside Spock's science station, her eyes rapidly assessing the tactical display. Shields up, Red Alert, Kirk ordered. Mr. Spock, how did they get this close without detection? They were waiting in a debris field, powered down to minimal signatures, Spock reported. They activated and decloaked simultaneously. A coordinated ambush. They knew our route from Kavath Prime, Kirk said grimly. Someone told them we'd be here. The view screen shifted to show a Romulan bridge. The commander was female, elegant and cold, her face bearing the distinctive ridged features of Romulan nobility. I am Commander Karas of the Imperial Fleet. Captain Kirk, your reputation precedes you. As does your mysterious passenger. Diana stepped forward into the viewscreen's view. You know of me? The Tal Shir knows everything worth knowing. Karas replied smoothly. A warrior woman with impossible abilities, appearing from nowhere, already influencing Federation politics. You fascinate us, Diana of Themyscira. The Empire would very much like to understand you better. The last people who wanted to understand me tried to hold a child hostage, Diana said coldly. I declined their invitation as well. Karas smiled without warmth. Those were pirates. We are the Romulan Star Empire. Our methods are more refined. She gestured, and another image appeared on split screen, a Federation science vessel, the USS Copernicus, surrounded by 2 more warbids. We currently hold 147 Federation scientists. Their continued survival depends on your cooperation. Kirk's hands gripped his armrests. This is an act of war, Commander. This is leverage, Captain. Diana will transport to my flagship. Once we are safely away, your scientists will be released unharmed. Refuse, and we destroy the Copernicus. You have 2 minutes to decide. The view screen went dark. Analysis, Spock. Kirk snapped. The Copernicus's shields are down, weapons offline. The Romulans could destroy it within seconds. We are outnumbered 6-1, and our shields cannot withstand concentrated fire from all warbids simultaneously. Spock's voice remained level despite the dire assessment. Tactically, our position is untenable. Diana's jaw tightened. This is what they do, isn't it? Use innocence as shields, exploit compassion as weakness. It's effective, Kirk admitted bitterly. And it puts us in an impossible position. Not impossible, Diana said. Captain, I will go to them. Absolutely not, Kirk stood. We don't negotiate with extortionists. We'll find another way. What other way? Diana challenged. You cannot fight 6 warbids. You cannot rescue the Copernicus before they destroy it. But I can go to their ship, and once aboard, they'll study you, dissect your abilities, potentially torture you for information. McCoy interjected from his station. Diana, you can't seriously consider. I can infiltrate their flagship, free myself, and disable their systems from within. Diana continued, her tactical mind already 3 steps ahead. I am not some helpless captive. I am a warrior who has infiltrated enemy fortresses, faced odds far worse than 6 ships. Your powers are still recovering, Spock pointed out. At 87% capacity, against unknown Romulan technology designed specifically to contain you. Then I will use intelligence instead of strength, Diana said. Captain Kirk, you told me to trust your judgment. Now I am asking you to trust mine. I can do this. Kirk looked at her, seeing the absolute certainty in her eyes. She wasn't being reckless, she was being strategic, calculating odds Kirk couldn't see because he didn't have 3,000 years of combat experience. 1 minute, Captain, Uhura said quietly. Kirk's mind raced through alternatives. Attack and condemn the Copernicus crew to death. Refuse and watch the same outcome. Comply fully and lose Diana to Romulan experimentation. Every option was a loss. Except Diana's plan. Risky, bordering on suicidal, but carrying one advantage. It gave them agency instead of forcing them to choose between bad outcomes. If you do this, Kirk said slowly, you go in with backup. We won't abandon you on that ship. You cannot beam a rescue team through their shields, Diana pointed out. No, but I can create a distraction. Kirk turned to his crew. Mr. Scott, can you rig our torpedoes to create a cascading subspace disruption? Something that would force the Romulans to lower their shields temporarily to avoid interference with their cloaking devices? Scotty's voice came through the intercom. Aye, Captain, but it'd take at least 20 minutes to modify the torpedoes properly, and we don't have 30 seconds, Uhura warned. Diana placed her hand on Kirk's shoulder. Captain, there is no time for elaborate plans. I go now alone, or people die. You know this is the only option. Kirk met her eyes and saw an Amazon princess who'd faced gods and demons, who'd lost everything but refused to surrender her principles. She was right, and he hated it. Hail the Romulans, Kirk ordered. Kara's reappeared, her expression expectant. Your decision? Diana will transport to your ship, Kirk said. But harm 1 person aboard the Copernicus, and I will hunt you to the edge of the galaxy. Empty threats from a captain with no leverage, Kara's replied. Diana, prepare for transport. My crew will lock onto your signal. Diana moved toward the turbolift, pausing at the door. Captain, when your sensors detect a power surge aboard the Romulan flagship, lower your shields and transport every human signature off that ship. Trust that I will create the opportunity. Diana. Trust me, she said again, and was gone. On the view screen, Kara smiled. Romulan transporter energizing. Golden light shimmered around Diana as she materialized in the transporter room, then vanished as the Romulan beam caught her. Kirk watched helplessly as the woman who'd become both ally and friend disappeared. She's aboard the flagship, Spock reported. The Romulan vessels are raising shields to maximum. Captain, Uhura said urgently. The Copernicus is hailing. They're asking what's happening. Tell them to stand by and be ready for emergency transport, Kirk ordered. He leaned forward in his chair, every instinct screaming at him to act. Mr. Spock, I need continuous scans of that flagship. The moment you detect anything unusual, power surges, shield fluctuations, anything. I want to know immediately. Aye, Captain. The minutes crawled past. Kirk watched the tactical display, 6 Romulan warbirds maintaining perfect formation, the Enterprise caught in a trap with no good options. Scotty worked frantically to prepare the torpedo modifications despite having no time to use them. Security teams stood ready for a rescue operation they had no way to execute. Captain, Spock said suddenly, I am detecting unusual energy readings from the flagship. Multiple internal explosions, life support fluctuations. Someone is sabotaging their systems from within. Diana, McCoy breathed. Reading a significant power surge building in their main reactor. Spock continued. It appears to be cascading toward Captain. Their shields are failing. Now! Kirk shouted. Lock onto all human signatures aboard that flagship and beam them directly to sickbay. Mr. Sulu, evasive maneuvers. Get us between those warbirds before they can concentrate fire. The Enterprise leaped forward, its massive frames sliding through the gap between 2 Romulan vessels. Disruptor fire lanced past, missing by meters as Sulu's hands danced across the navigation console. I have Diana's signal, the transporter chief reported. Beaming now, Captain. There are Romulan guards directly on top of her position, weapons firing. Golden light sparkled on the bridge as Diana materialized mid-combat, a Romulan soldier in each hand. She threw them aside with casual strength, blood streaming from a disruptor wound on her shoulder. Their reactor will breach in 47 seconds, Diana gasped, dropping to one knee. Get us away from here. Maximum warp, now! Kirk ordered. The Enterprise streaked away as behind them, the Romulan flagship's reactor containment failed. The explosion was spectacular, a miniature star blooming in space, consuming the vessel and sending the other warbirds scattering. The remaining Romulan vessels are retreating, Spock reported. They are cloaking and withdrawing across the neutral zone. Kirk was at Diana's side instantly, McCoy materializing with a medical kit. The disruptor wound was serious, but Diana's enhanced healing was already knitting tissue. What did you do? Kirk demanded. Diana smiled weakly. I told Commander Kara's the truth, that I was a warrior, not a specimen. When she tried to have me restrained with neural inhibitors, I demonstrated why Amazon bracelets are more than decorative. She touched the silver cuffs, which were scorched but intact. Then I convinced her engineers, using the lasso, to help me sabotage their reactor. Turns out even loyal Romulans prefer survival over duty when compelled to speak truth. You destroyed their flagship, Kirk said, somewhere between awe and concern. Killed everyone aboard who couldn't escape. Diana's expression hardened. They kidnapped Federation citizens. Threatened mass murder. Used innocents as leverage. I gave them a choice, release the hostages and let me leave peacefully, or face the consequences. Commander Karras chose poorly. That's not how the Federation operates, Kirk said quietly. We don't execute enemies without trial, without due process. Then perhaps that is why the Romulans felt comfortable attacking you, Diana replied. She stood despite McCoy's protests, her warrior bearing returning despite her injury. Captain, I have the utmost respect for your ideals. But ideals without strength to enforce them are simply pretty words. The Romulans respect only power. Today, I showed them that power exists within your Federation, even if you're reluctant to use it. Spock's console beeped. Captain, we are receiving a priority transmission from Starfleet Command. Admiral Comac wishes to speak with you immediately. The message is flagged urgent and classified. Kirk exchanged glances with Diana. Put him through to my ready room. Diana, you're coming with me. In the ready room, Comac's face was thunderous. Captain Kirk, Starfleet Intelligence has been monitoring Romulan communication channels. You just created a diplomatic incident that could reignite the war. The Romulan Praetor is demanding Diana be surrendered for trial as a war criminal. She saved 147 Federation scientists. Kirk countered. The Romulans initiated hostilities with kidnapping and extortion. And she responded by destroying a warbird and killing its entire crew. Carmack shot back. Captain, I warned you that Diana represented a security risk. She operates outside our legal framework, makes her own rules, and now she's committed an act that the Romulan Empire considers terrorism. Diana stepped forward. Admiral, your Federation preaches justice and protection of the innocent. I delivered both. If enforcing those principles creates diplomatic complications, perhaps your diplomacy is built on foundations too weak to deserve defending. Carmack's face reddened. You will report to Starbase 12 for immediate detention. Starfleet Command will determine whether to extradite you to Romulus or try you ourselves for violations of... No, Diana said simply. Excuse me? I said no, Admiral. I will not submit to detention. I will not surrender to Romulan injustice. And I will not allow fear of diplomatic consequences to silence me when I did what was necessary and right. Diana's eyes blazed with conviction. I am Diana of Themyscira. I answered to my own conscience and the principles I was raised to defend. If your Federation cannot accept that, then I will leave and find my own path among the stars. The transmission went silent, Carmack's expression caught between outrage and calculation. Kirk spoke into the void. Admiral, Diana acted to save lives. She succeeded. Punishing her for that sends a message that the Federation values protocol over results, rules over justice. Is that really what Starfleet wants to communicate? Carmack's jaw worked silently. Finally, the Enterprise will proceed to Starbase 12. Both of you will answer for this. Carmack out. The screen went dark. Diana turned to Kirk. I have complicated your life considerably, Captain. You saved 147 people. Kirk replied. That's worth complications. Is it worth your career? Kirk smiled grimly. Let's find out. The journey to Starbase 12 took 4 days. Kirk spent most of them preparing his defense, reviewing regulations, and searching for precedents that might protect Diana from extradition or court-martial. Spock helped, his logical mind dissecting legal frameworks with the same precision he applied to scientific problems. Diana spent the time in the ship's gymnasium, training with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. Kirk found her there on the 3rd day, moving through combat forms with fluid grace despite the healing disruptor wound on her shoulder. You should be resting, Kirk said from the doorway. Diana completed her sequence before responding, her breathing barely elevated. Amazons rest when the battle is won. This battle has barely begun. She retrieved a towel, wiping sweat from her face. Your Admiral Carmack will attempt to sacrifice me to appease the Romulans. You know this. He'll try, Kirk acknowledged. But Starfleet Command isn't unanimous. There are admirals who understand that sometimes rules must bend to circumstances. And if they don't? Diana asked. If they order you to surrender me? Kirk met her gaze steadily. Then I'll have a choice to make. The same choice I faced on that Romulan flagship, duty versus conscience. Diana's expression was understanding, not accusatory. I will not ask you to sacrifice your career for me, Captain. You have done more than anyone could expect, given me purpose when I had none, treated me with dignity when others saw only a weapon to exploit or a threat to contain. You're a member of this crew, Kirk said firmly. We don't abandon our own. Diana smiled sadly. I am not truly one of your crew, James Kirk. I am a refugee from another reality, a warrior from a dead world. Perhaps it is time I accepted that and stopped trying to fit into a universe that was never meant to hold me. Before Kirk could respond, Uhura's voice came through the intercom. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Starbase 12. It's not from Admiral Carmack, it's from Ambassador Serak of Vulcan. He's requesting to speak with you and Diana immediately. Kirk and Diana exchanged surprised glances. Serak was one of the Federation's most respected diplomats, Spock's father, and known for his logical approach to impossible situations. In the briefing room, Serak's dignified features appeared on the view screen. Captain Kirk, Diana of Themyscira. I have been following your situation with interest. The Romulan demand for extradition presents a complex legal and diplomatic challenge. Ambassador, I appreciate your interest, but this is a Starfleet matter. It is a Federation matter. Serak interrupted smoothly. Which falls under diplomatic jurisdiction when it involves potential treaty violations with foreign powers. I have persuaded the Federation Council to allow me to mediate this situation before it escalates to formal proceedings. Diana stepped forward. Ambassador, I will not surrender myself to Romulan justice. Their legal system is designed to serve the Empire's interests, not to determine truth or administer fair punishment. Agreed, Serak said, and Kirk blinked in surprise. The Romulan Empire's request is transparently political rather than judicial. However, refusing outright risks armed conflict. Therefore, I propose an alternative. I'm listening, Kirk said. Ancient Vulcan law, which predates our alliance with Earth, includes provisions for trial by advocacy. When two cultures have conflicting legal frameworks, a neutral arbiter hears arguments from representatives of each side. The arbiter's decision is considered binding by all parties. Serak's eyebrow rose fractionally. I have proposed this framework to both the Romulan Praetor and the Federation Council. Surprisingly, both have agreed, albeit for different reasons. The Romulans think they can win, Diana said. Indeed. They believe their case is strong. You destroyed a warbird, killed Romulan citizens, and violated their sovereignty. From their legal perspective, these are capital crimes. Serak paused. The Federation Council believes your actions, while extreme, were justified by the circumstances. They see an opportunity to establish precedent for defending against Romulan aggression. Kirk understood the trap immediately. And if we lose this trial, Diana is executed. If we refuse to participate, the Romulans have justification for renewed hostilities. Precisely. However, if you win, the Romulan Empire must formally acknowledge that their actions constituted illegal aggression, and they will be prohibited from further retaliation. Serak's gaze settled on Diana. The question is whether you trust your advocate to present your case effectively. Who would serve as advocate? Diana asked. I would, Serak replied, if you consent to my representation. Diana studied the Vulcan diplomat with the same intensity she applied to evaluating opponents in combat. Ambassador, your people value logic above emotion, order above case. I am a warrior who acts on instinct and passion. Can you truly represent someone so fundamentally different from yourself? Logic does not preclude understanding passion, Serak said. And justice, properly pursued, requires both reason and moral conviction. I believe I can present your case effectively. The question is whether you can trust a Vulcan to defend an Amazon. For a long moment, Diana was silent. Then she nodded slowly. I accept your representation, Ambassador Serak. Not because I trust easily, but because Captain Kirk's son serves under him, and I have learned to respect the judgment of those Kirk respects. I am Spock's father, not his commander, Serak corrected. But your reasoning is sound nonetheless. The trial was set for 2 days hence, to be held on Starbase 12 in a neutral chamber. The arbiter would be a Deltan judge known for impartiality, selected because the Deltan civilization had treaties with both Federation and Romulan Empire. Kirk watched Diana prepare with Serak, the unlikely pair spending hours reviewing her actions step by step. The Vulcan's logical approach initially frustrated Diana's more intuitive thinking, but gradually they found common ground. Both believed in absolute honesty, both valued justice over expedience, both refused to compromise core principles for tactical advantage. The day of the trial arrived. The chamber was austere, designed to eliminate distraction or emotional manipulation. Judge Vlara sat elevated, her Deltan features serene and unreadable. The Romulan advocate was Commander Jal, a veteran military prosecutor known for ruthless efficiency. Diana sat beside Serak, her armor polished, her bearing regal. Kirk watched from the observer section, Spock silent beside him. Jal opened with cold precision. The facts are undisputed. Diana of Themyscira boarded a Romulan vessel, sabotaged critical systems, and caused an explosion that killed 137 Imperial citizens. She committed these acts not in self-defense, but as deliberate aggression. Romulan law demands execution for such crimes. The context is conveniently omitted, Serak replied smoothly. The Romulan vessel kidnapped 147 Federation citizens. They threatened mass murder to coerce compliance. Diana's actions were a proportionate response to illegal aggression. Proportionate? Jal's voice stripped with scorn. She destroyed an entire ship when she could have simply disabled it. She killed when she could have incapacitated. These are the actions of a savage, not a civilized being bound by law. Diana's jaw tightened, but Serak placed a restraining hand on her arm. May I address the court directly? Diana asked Judge Vlera. The Deltan considered, then nodded. The accused may speak. Diana stood, and every eye in the chamber fixed on her. Commander Jal calls me a savage. Perhaps she is correct. I was raised on an island of warriors, trained since childhood in combat that would horrify your civilized sensibilities. I have killed enemies in battle, defended my people with violence, and never apologized for being what I am. Kirk tensed, unsure where Diana was going. But I have also saved countless innocents, Diana continued. Protected the weak, fought tyrants, and always, given my enemies the choice to surrender before I struck them down. Commander Kara's received that choice. She could have released the hostages. She could have let me leave peacefully. She chose escalation, chose to maintain her aggression, chose to believe her shields and weapons made her invulnerable. Diana's voice hardened. I am not civilized by your standards. I am a warrior from a culture that believed in absolute justice, in defending the innocent with whatever force proves necessary. If that makes me a savage in your eyes, so be it. But I will not apologize for saving 147 lives by ending 137 that were actively threatening them. The chamber fell silent. Jal looked ready to object, but Diana wasn't finished. Your legal systems, both Romulan and Federation, are built on the premise that law supersedes individual moral judgment. That rules matter more than results. That procedure is sacred even when it prevents justice. Diana's eyes swept the room. I reject that premise. Laws are tools created by beings to serve justice, not obstacles that prevent it. When law fails to protect the innocent, I will act outside it. When rules enable evil, I will break them. Judge me for that if you must. But do not expect me to pretend that your legal frameworks are more important than the lives they claim to protect. Judge Vlera's expression remained neutral, but Kirk saw her eyes sharpen with interest. Ambassador Serak, do you concur with your client's position? Serak stood. I concur with the principle that justice must ultimately serve the preservation of innocent life. However, I would frame the argument differently. Diana's actions aboard the Romulan vessel were not random violence but strategic necessity. The Romulans created a situation where peaceful resolution was impossible. They escalated, threatened mass murder, and left Diana with three options. Comply and risk the hostages' deaths anyway, refuse and watch them die, or act decisively to eliminate the threat. She chose violence. Jal interjected. She chose survival for the innocent. Serak countered. The difference is significant. Had Commander Kara's released the hostages, Diana would not have sabotaged the reactor. Had the Romulans withdrawn peacefully, no ship would have been destroyed. The chain of causation begins with Romulan aggression, not Diana's response to it. Jal's face darkened. The Empire's actions are not on trial here. They should be, Diana said quietly. Judge Vlera raised her hand for silence. I will deliberate. This chamber will reconvene in 1 hour. The wait was excruciating. Kirk paced the corridor outside while Diana sat motionless, her eyes closed in meditation. Serak stood nearby, his Vulcan composure unshakable. Finally, they were summoned back. Judge Valeras' expression gave nothing away. I have considered the arguments presented. This case presents a fundamental conflict between legal absolutism and situational ethics, between procedural law and natural justice. Kirk held his breath. Diana of Themyscira committed acts that, viewed in isolation, constitute serious crimes under Romulan law. However, laws do not exist in isolation. They exist to serve justice, to protect the innocent, to create order that benefits civilization. Valeras' gaze settled on Diana. When law fails these purposes, when it becomes a shield for aggression rather than a protection against it, adherence to law becomes complicity in injustice. Jal stood abruptly. Judge Valera, this is... I am not finished, Commander. Valera's voice carried absolute authority. The Romulan Empire initiated this crisis through kidnapping and extortion. They created circumstances where violent resolution became inevitable. Diana's actions were extreme, but they were proportionate to the threat and successful in preserving innocent life. Therefore, I rule that no crime was committed. The Romulan extradition request is denied. The chamber erupted. Jal's protests drowned in the noise. Kirk felt relief wash through him like a physical force. But Diana wasn't celebrating. She approached the bench, looking up at Judge Valera. Your judgment is wise and I am grateful. But tell me, if the situation recurs, if I face similar choices, will I receive the same consideration? Or will this ruling apply only to this specific case? Valera met her eyes. The precedent is set. However, Diana of Themyscira, I offer you counsel. You are correct that law can fail justice. But abandoning law entirely leads to chaos. Find the balance between the two, or you will eventually stand before a judge less sympathetic than I. Diana inclined her head. I will remember your wisdom. 3 weeks after the trial, the Enterprise orbited Earth. Diana stood in the observation lounge, staring at the blue-green world below, a planet that looked so much like her home yet held none of the people or places she'd loved. Kirk found her there as he had so many times before, her reflection ghostly in the viewport. The Federation Council has officially approved your status as a civilian specialist, Kirk said, joining her at the window. You're authorized to serve aboard the Enterprise for as long as you choose. Starfleet Command wasn't happy about it, but after the trial verdict and Ambassador Serak's recommendation, they didn't have much choice. An Admiral Carmack? Diana asked. Transferred to a desk position at Starfleet Academy. Officially a promotion. Unofficially, he's being kept away from active operations. Kirk smiled slightly. Politics. Diana nodded but said nothing, her eyes still fixed on Earth. There's an island down there, Kirk continued. In the Mediterranean. Greece. The culture that inspired your Themyscira's legends. I thought you might want to visit, see if anything feels familiar. It won't, Diana said softly. This Earth's Greece never knew the Amazons, never witnessed the gods I served. It's just another reminder that my world is gone. She turned to face him, and Kirk saw both sorrow and acceptance in her eyes. But I appreciate the thought, Captain. You've tried so hard to help me find a home in this universe. Have I succeeded? Diana considered the question carefully. You've given me purpose. The chance to use my skills to protect others, to fight for justice even when your laws make it complicated. That is more than I dared hope for when I first arrived. She paused. But a home? No. I don't think I will ever truly belong in this reality. I am a warrior without a war, a princess without a kingdom, an Amazon without sisters. I am fundamentally alone. You're not alone, Kirk said firmly. You have this crew. Spock respects your tactical mind. McCoy admires your conviction even when he disagrees with your methods. Uhura enjoys your conversations about culture and philosophy. And I. He hesitated. I consider you a friend, Diana. One of the finest people I've ever served with. Diana's expression softened. And you are a better man than your Federation perhaps deserves, James Kirk. You bend rules when conscience demands it. You risk everything to save your crew. You lead with both courage and compassion. She smiled. In another life, you would have made an excellent Amazon. Kirk laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. Diana looked back at Earth. I've been thinking about what Judge Valera said. About finding balance between law and justice. I'm not certain I can, Captain. My nature is to act, to intervene, to fight when I see injustice. Your prime directive asks me to stand aside and watch civilizations suffer through their own mistakes. That conflict will arise again. I know, Kirk acknowledged. And when it does, we'll face it together. We'll argue, disagree, probably drive each other crazy. But we'll find a way through it. You have remarkable faith in compromise. I have remarkable faith in you, Kirk corrected. You saved the Phi Delta colonists when diplomacy would have failed. You helped Cavith Prime see the Federation as worthy allies. You stood against Romulan aggression when standing aside would have meant death for innocence. Yes, your methods are unconventional. Yes, you make Starfleet Command nervous. But you give results, and you do it while staying true to your principles. Diana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decision. Then I will stay aboard the Enterprise. I will serve as your tactical advisor, your cultural specialist, your warrior when warriors are needed. I will try, truly try, to understand your Federation's complex rules and the wisdom behind them. But I will not promise to always obey them. I wouldn't want you to, Kirk said. The day you start blindly following orders is the day you stop being Diana of Themyscira. A proximity alert chimed softly. Uhura's voice came through the intercom. Captain, we're receiving new orders from Starfleet Command. There's a situation developing in the Argolis cluster. Unknown vessels attacking colony supply lines. We're ordered to investigate. Kirk tapped his communicator. Acknowledged, Lieutenant. Set course for the Argolis cluster, warp factor 6. I'm on my way to the bridge. He looked at Diana. Duty calls. Diana's hand went to her lasso, a warrior's instinct awakening. Then let us answer it together. They walked to the bridge side by side, Captain and Amazon, explorer and warrior, two individuals from vastly different worlds who'd found common cause among the stars. On the view screen, Earth receded as the Enterprise leaped to warp. Diana took her station beside Spock's science console, a position that had gradually become hers over the past weeks. The Vulcan acknowledged her with a slight nod. The Argolis cluster contains 17 inhabited systems, Spock reported. The attacks have followed a pattern suggesting military precision rather than random piracy. Whoever is conducting these raids possesses significant tactical capability. Then they'll find themselves facing something they didn't expect, Diana said, her voice carrying quiet confidence. A Federation starship with a crew that believes in protecting the innocent, led by a captain who understands that sometimes rules must bend to serve justice, and advised by a warrior who has spent 3,000 years learning how to fight impossible odds. Kirk settled into his command chair, looking at his crew, his family, gathered around him. Spock at science, already analyzing data with characteristic precision. Uhura at communications, monitoring subspace channels for intelligence. Sulu and Chekhov at the helm, ready to navigate whatever dangers awaited. McCoy in sickbay, preparing for casualties he hoped wouldn't come. And Diana, standing tall in her armor, a living bridge between ancient warrior traditions and the Federation's hopeful future. Mr. Sulu, increase to Warp 7, Kirk ordered. Let's show these raiders what happens when they threaten Federation citizens. The Enterprise surged forward, carrying its crew toward new challenges, new conflicts, new opportunities to prove that strength and compassion need not be opposing forces. Diana of Themyscira watched the stars streak past, and for the first time since arriving in this strange universe, she felt something approaching peace. She would never have her Themyscira back. Never see her mother or her Amazon sisters again. Never walk the beaches of Paradise Island or train in the arenas where she'd learned to be a warrior. But she had found a new purpose. A new family. A new fight worth fighting. And perhaps, in a universe built on science rather than gods, on exploration rather than isolation, on hope rather than cynicism, that was enough. The Amazon princess from a dead world had become something new, not quite Federation, not quite civilian, not quite bound by anyone's rules but her own. She was Diana of Themyscira, warrior and wanderer, protector and truth-seeker, forever caught between the world she'd lost and the universe she was learning to defend. And as the Enterprise raced toward its next mission, Diana smiled, the fierce, joyful smile of a warrior heading into battle with allies she trusted at her side. The stars held infinite challenges, countless injustices, endless opportunities for someone willing to fight for what was right. Diana of Themyscira was ready for all of them. Live long and prosper. Hit that subscribe button for more interesting stories. Thank you for watching.